Matt, I'm excited to have you on today. Thanks so much for making time. Really looking forward to diving into the recent announcements from Rippling and some of the other things you guys have rolling out. But before we talk about that, would love to just learn a little bit more about kind of your origin story, how you came over to Rippling. It sounds like you were at Inkling and built that into a successful business. So what was it that kind of drew you into Rippling at that stage of the business?
I mean, Rippling was a personal thing, really. Our founder and CEO and I have been friends since we were in college, and I was a free agent. I had sold my company, didn't ascend to the sky high altitudes that you kind of aspire to when you start one, but had a really good run and learned a ton of lessons. And so when I was a free agent, Parker gave me a call, and I said, hard pass, like hell no. And he wore me down over time, and I'm glad he did. And I joined, mostly just to get the chance to work with one of my closest friends. And yeah, I swore I would never work in HR tech again because Inkling was HR tech. Here I am back in HR tech. So yeah, the universe works in mysterious ways, as they say, and I'm super happy that I ended up back in this world and working with Parker on Rippling.
That's awesome. I didn't realize though that hard no early on was because you had sworn off HR tech, but it makes sense. It's a challenging space, but
Challenging market, yep,
yeah,
yeah. It's but an interesting one, and one that obviously has a lot of purpose.
or exactly, absolutely foundational to every single business. And I know one of the things that we were really excited to catch up on was you guys recently publicly announced Rippling AI and how that's really different than sort of the bolt-on chatbots that have been rolled out by peer companies. So would love to learn a little bit more from you about kind of what's gone into that rollout and how you guys think that's really going to change how employees and administrators experience Rippling.
I mean, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
It's like, it's insane how fast this technology is moving. I think like, every week we sort of lick our wounds at the end on Friday afternoon thinking, man, so much happened this week. So many like advancements in the models, new technologies that we can use to develop software internally, new technology we can deploy to our customers. Rippling AI, we like a lot of HCM companies have been talking about AI for a while, but I put this in air quotes because I don't think what they have is anything other than glorified like document summarization and the occasional simple data lookup, like, what's my PTO balance or whatever. None of that matters. None of that's going to look in the rearview mirror like it was ever actually AI. And so we've been kind of pulling our punch. We've been holding back. We've been waiting to talk about AI because we want to make sure we have something that's actually really useful and impactful before we do. And so, yeah, we launched Rippling AI, which it's kind of like, it's honestly kind of mind blowing what it can do. And I think like we've been using it internally for so long that we started getting used to it. It's one of those things that like once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You immediately take it for granted. And so, I use it every day, like literally every day, almost in every meeting where someone make a claim, like I'm thinking about hiring in a given department, and someone says like, yeah, we're in really good shape on our pipeline. And I'm like, I just type into Rippling AI, like, hey, how many people have we hired into this department in the last 12 weeks? And how many people have we attrited? And like, boom, I immediately get the answer. I can ask it questions like, can you tell me if there's any correlation between teams that promote quickly and teams that have lower attrition rates or higher retention rates? And it like does the analysis for you on the fly. I mean, it's like so much cool stuff. And it's kind of freaky to me. I mean, as the guy who runs the product organization, there's so many more miles to go with this. If I were an HR professional right now, it's like, oof, man, a couple of things are true. Like one, my life's going to get easier. I'm not going to have to answer so many questions from employees about their paycheck or their benefits enrollment or whatever. Like that stuff's going to be automated away by AI. And then also like, wait, what's my job again? Like, what am I supposed to be spending time on? And the answer is like everything the AI can't do, which is much more on the human side of the job and much more on the strategic side of the job. And it's like, businesses are going to get a higher ROI out of each HR business partner they hire. And that's good. Like it's fundamentally good, but does it mean we're going to need fewer of them? I don't know, TBD. It seems like the sort of ergo on that is like, you want to make sure your HR BPs are engaged in the strategic work, and they're just not going to have to spend as much time on the tactical BS that I don't think really anybody enjoys. So it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, no, the blocking and tackling can be, AI agent work. And then it just becomes hopefully what people got into HR for, the human side of it, the strategy, the leadership development, the connecting with other individuals. But again, is that the same number of headcount at an organization that it was before? I think definitely TBD.
Yeah, the ratios will probably change. I mean, what kills me about this is like, everybody talks about like agents doing stuff for you, but then when you go to an event, you ask for a show of hands of like who here actually has agents run off and do stuff for them. Like the vast majority of people are like, no, this has not hit me yet. Like I don't use it. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how it could. It doesn't have access to my data. It doesn't have access to make changes to my system. Like how could it? And what's frustrating for Rippling for us is like we have something now that does that, and it's going to be in the soup of fake marketing, like all the garbage marketing from all of the other HCM providers about what their agentic stuff does, when in fact it doesn't do any of that. And then we make similar claims, but then ours actually does deliver on that promise. Like that's why we really want people to just like demo it and see it in real life, so that they're like, oh man, I got to take this back to like my current HCM vendor, or take this back. It's like, and ask them if they can do that, because it's like worlds apart. But that's life, man. That's the reality of business and marketing, is that a lot of companies are going to make a lot of claims. Kind of like Apple. Like I used to work at Apple, and you'd hear all these companies making all these claims, and Apple would ship its version of whatever the product was. And it was like, oh, like Apple got it right. And I'd like to think that at some level, that's the way that we're operating.
Yeah. And one of the things, I guess two things on that comment. One is like foundationally, what is it about Rippling that's different that allows the AI product that you guys roll out to be so unique and distinguished from those? And then as we kind of look a few steps forward, I think the kind of immediate experience I saw going through the product demo that you guys have on the website is, it is like treating chat as the interface where everything starts. But I guess beyond that, is there a world where it starts building features and modules and tools for the organization? So two-part question. One is just talking about like what you guys have foundationally that makes this different, and then where is it heading?
On the foundational side, it's pretty straightforward. It's like the simple things are hard to build, but it's like, number one, you got to have access to all of the data in your organization. Once you have all the data organized into a place where it's consistently structured and the AI knows how to access it, then the data has to be properly permissed. Like it has to have permissions wrapped around it so that the people who are trying to access it can only access the data that they have permissions to access, which by itself is no small thing, because the agent has to inherit your permissions and then traverse the system in a way that's very safe. And at some level, it has to understand its own permissions so that it can ask questions about its own permissions. But that presents really interesting ethical issues. Like, do you want to disclose to the agent that it doesn't have this permission that someone else has? And what if the agent discloses that to the user, and then the user goes to the other human being and says, hey, how come you can do this and I can't do this in the system? And now there's conflict at work because the agent sort of overshared its context. Really, but then like the agent won't really perform well if it doesn't understand why it can't do something. So it's like super interesting little, how do you got to think these problems through really carefully. So in our permissioning infrastructure, which wraps around all the data, it manages that kind of complexity. And then once all of that stuff is organized in the right way, you need this other really difficult thing, which is you need metadata. You need information about the data. So when I look at a line, like a field in the system, Rippling comes out of the box with 25,000 pre-configured fields. You're not going to use all of them, but the agent can see all of them. And so when you ask something like, hey, what is this person's compensation? It's like, ooh, do we mean base salary? Do we mean hourly wage? Well, we got to think about that, and we got to look at whether this person is an exempt or non-exempt employee, and then decide which fields are appropriate. And like to do that, you got to have a ton of information, example use cases that you can literally explain in plain English to the agent so it understands the meaning of these different fields. And so number one, you got to have the data all in one place, consistently structured. Number two, you got to wrap it all in permissions. And number three, you got to put metadata on top of that information so that the agent can understand what it's looking at. And we've been building this for years at Rippling for our data cloud product, which is forthcoming. And we sort of got lucky that we had that infrastructure when we started chewing on these AI capabilities. So it's really special because I don't think anybody else can talk about it this way. And I mean, most sort of HCM companies that came 10 plus years before Rippling are sort of Mr. Potato Heads. They've been put together over time through a series of acquisitions where they never really fully integrated that stuff. If you've ever had to log into the system more than once, depending on what you're trying to do, you've found a seam in the system. So we don't have those problems, and that sets us apart from an AI perspective. In terms of where this stuff is going, I mean, agentic workflows and the ability to just describe what you want to have happen on what conditions and have that auto triggered, the ability to fluidly move between a conversational interface and a traditional GUI interface, and having a setup on your screen that is amenable to moving between those two contexts, being able to send a bunch of agents off to do work for you and then have them run in parallel and manage them, sort of as a screen full of agents that are busy. These are things that are already becoming de rigueur in the world of software programming and in those environments. And we're going to bring those same paradigms and ideas to the day-to-day life of finance professionals, IT professionals, and HR professionals on Rippling AI.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like the fortune of kind of building with this vision in mind, and then this AI kind of black swan event coming. But I think Parker from the beginning has always talked about the compound startup and the importance of unified data, unified engines, and so it makes perfect sense that colors some of the vision you guys have around acquisitions or lack thereof, where there really isn't that much M&A. It's really a lot of homegrown. How does that factor into how you guys think about like third-party integration tools? I think back to 2019 early days where the integrations with like a Lattice or an Ashby or some of those tools were really important to round out the gaps that Rippling didn't have yet. But as companies are kind of getting more benefit maybe from having more of the system contained in one ecosystem, how does that change the calculus there a little bit?
Integrations to Rippling are already super important. But when you think about being able to frame all of that data around the employee record, that's where the magic happens. People don't often think about it this way, but everything you do in your business, everything, it centers eventually on an employee, whether it's about a deal that someone closed and needs to earn commission, whether it's about a security issue on a device that you're managing, whether it's about some reorganization or employee payment that has to happen, an expense reimbursement, all of it centers on the employee. And the reason that Rippling has a sort of magical essence to it when you use it, where it's like, ooh, that happened automatically, or wow, it really understood what I was trying to do here. It's because everything we do ties back to the employee record. And so these third-party integrations that we now have and will continue to build, we'll have hundreds of these integrations to things like Salesforce, Square, your point of sale system, your inventory system, Oracle ERP. All of that stuff will tie back to the employee record under the umbrella of Rippling AI. And you'll be able to ask questions, query data, make decisions, trigger events based on all that stuff. And beautifully, like, you don't really have to sit there and tinker with like a large data catalog. You can just say it in English and the agent will propose an approach to the problem you're trying to solve. So, the integrations portfolio is growing really quickly. And incidentally, one of the things that's actually very interesting about that is that the integrations catalog is growing quickly because we've been able to use AI to build those integrations. And so we can point an agent that we've built at the documentation for a given API, for some third-party product, and it reads the documentation, it understands the Rippling object graph, and then it's able to implement the integration kind of the 80 to 90% point for us, and then an engineer can pick it up and carry it across the finish line, is remarkable. And it just cuts by an order of magnitude the amount of time that it takes to build yet another data integration to Rippling. So there's a lot of change happening on that front too.
That's fascinating. Taking a step back from the AI big bet and sort of the big transformation we have happening there. A couple of years ago, you guys were really one of the first to market in making the HCM bet to go global. And, from my vantage point, it seems like that was a very prescient decision. It seems like it's really positioned you guys extremely well for how the market's changed. But would love to kind of like get behind the scenes on when that conversation started internally for you guys, how that conversation went, how you guys felt about like the pros and cons and placing that bet, and how it's progressed over the last couple of years since you've really staked your claim in that space.
It became clear post-COVID that companies were going to expect to manage their global workforce under one roof. And, our ethos, kind of two ingredients. One is we always play the long game. So we don't need a quick duct tape solution. We don't need to run out and buy a company. We don't need to go do partnerships and integrate third-party software into our platform that way. We said, we're going to take the most important markets and we're going to build fully native payroll in those countries. And for our employer of record or contractor of record products, you can pay through our system. And if you have your own headquarters in that country, or if you are fully headquartered in that country, you can run payroll in those countries through Rippling Payroll, just as in the United States, and built a central global payroll platform that then each country kind of plugs into. And that strategy, as fraught at it as it is from a technical perspective, has paid off dividends. Our largest non-US markets are now the largest markets. It's Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, where we do really well in those countries with our native product. Then we partnered on the long tail, not the long tail, like the mid tail and the long tail of countries beyond that, with a standard global payroll product. And the point is that the effort was deliberately a multi-year effort to just burn down the countries so that we would have a single global payment rail that every company could use in every country in the world. It was very clear that was going to be the path. It was very clear that companies were going to want to manage all countries in one system. And I think the value proposition for Rippling today is sort of stunningly clear, like especially, with AI. When let me give you a concrete example. When you want to do bonus, let's say spot bonuses or commission payments, if you use a cobbled together system, a third party system integrated to your HC, and you got to sit there and you got to manually enter each of these different bonuses into each individual pay run. You got your UK pay run, which is next week. You've got your Australia pay run, which is tomorrow. You've got your US pay run in 3 days. And you get your hourly pay run and your non-exempt pay run, or so your exempt pay run. And you've got to go in and put all these things into all of those runs for all of these people in all of their currencies. And as a payroll administrator, you can just imagine, this is not super intellectually engaging work. You just got to not mess it up. The Rippling agent, when you give it a CSV and say, here's 30 people who need bonuses inserted into the next available pay run in their local currency, off it goes. It just does it. It comes back, it tees it up, it shows it to you in a table, you hit go. In a system that's not integrated the way ours is integrated, there's just no hope of that happening. There's just no chance. How is the agent going to traverse these different systems, understand the different interfaces or different field values or meanings? It's just not something you can do. And so the global bet that we placed that now constitutes a big chunk of our growth is that much more crazy good, that much more exciting and valuable to customers in the era of AI, because again, now it's all in one, and now the AI agent can understand all of it. And if you're using a core HCM and you're subscribing to EOR product from some third party, it's just it's not the place to be as a customer right now. You need to migrate to a unified system. You're just going to be left in the dust if you're still dealing with this stuff in a year.
And one of the gaps I see on top of what you just outlined is when you do take that architecture of an HCM platform that, purchased global payroll solution, is that there's this global gap that sits above global payroll that makes those non-US employees really feel like second-class citizens. I always tell clients, I'm like, yeah, they're going to say you can store your global employees in there, but they're going to give your employee in Barcelona the 4th of July off and ask for their social security number during onboarding, right? And so how do you guys think about not just getting the compliance payroll right, but also creating an experience that doesn't feel like it came from the United States?
Yeah, there's no easy answer to this beyond hiring people who, as product managers and designers into our company, who understand the local markets. And so we have a big office in London where we hire native, French speakers, German speakers to manage the French and German experience. We do that in London just because we want to have everybody in the office together, face-to-face, collaborating, rather than a bunch of remote employees. We build our Australian payroll system. A lot of the interface and all the product management is done in Australia. And I'm Canadian, and it's super annoying. So when I'm in Canada and I see some American ad that uses American language or refers to the dollar, but you find out after you get to the checkout that they're referring to the American dollar, which is 30% more expensive. It's stuff like that. I grew up with it and it's inexcusable. And so our goal is to make every product in its given country at least as good as any domestically developed solution, and needs to use the lingua franca of, any given country and any given cultural context. But there's no shortcuts. Sometimes the AI nowadays helps us flag things where we've inadvertently introduced some, US-centric mindset. But the goal is to have the employee and the admin, everybody involved, feel like they're working with a system that understands their local market. And to your point about the employee having a first class experience, again, they should show up in the employee directory. They should show up in the org chart. They should show up in every aspect if they are an employee of the company, regardless of the structure of their employment. Who cares if they are under an employer of record agreement or even serving as a contractor? It ought to feel like they're a first class member of your team. And so that's always been a core principle of how we treat global workforces inside Rippling.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking back a couple of years ago, there was a client from Australia who was shopping systems, and they told me they looked at Bamboo HR and it felt too American. I was like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, they use the word awesome everywhere. And that's just so American. And I was like, I never thought about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, you got to get the little details right.
I can promise that Rippling does not arbitrarily say awesome.
I know we got a couple more minutes. I definitely want to be respectful of your time, but one of the things that, I'm seeing in the media right now in the stock market is just people saying like software is dead, AI is going to be the end of SaaS. When you hear things like that, how do you interpret it? What do you think is missing from that conversation?
There's a few things. One is the market is usually right in the long run. And so whatever is being priced in here, which is sort of an assumption that, when you think about the stock price and the price impact of AI is merited at some level, which is this assumption that you can't bake into your calculations the idea that people are going to stick with their software subscription for 10 years. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 4 years. And that really hurts the net present value calculation because it drops off in the distance. On the flip side, because investors like us, like we as operators, don't necessarily understand what is going to happen, this really, rather than reflecting some super well thought through economic calculation, really reflects a retrenchment or a recoiling from the unknown. Like, it's just a defensive posture for shareholders thinking, okay, we don't know what's going to happen here and we don't know what the long-term health of this business is going to be. We probably shouldn't be quite so long this position. And I think that's all fair and good. But I also think the idea that Salesforce or ServiceNow or any of the more established SaaS software businesses are just going to toss the keys over to the guys at Anthropic and call it a day is a little bit silly. They're going to fight tooth and nail. They're pulling the drawbridge up on their data. They're making sure that they have the best AI agent they can have and will compete toe to toe. And I think that Rippling is a lot like that in the sense that we're going to out Anthropic. We love them and partner with them for a lot of the technology under the hood of Rippling AI. We will be present in their Claude for Work product, and similarly, we'll be working with our friends at OpenAI to be present in ChatGPT in the right ways. But we do have to protect the PII and the sensitive information and money movement in our system, and we're not just going to let a third party come in over the top and sort of drive for you. It's too dangerous. And so as it stands, I think I'm most excited about welcoming people into Rippling AI because the minute they touch it, they immediately recognize that this is going to be a part of their day-to-day work. Like, they're going to work directly with Rippling AI. They're not going to need a third-party system on top to use it. And I think that future is bright. I think it's bright, honestly, for us, and it's bright for other incumbent SaaS software businesses. I think it's also bright, of course, for the model providers as they continue to do the R&D work needed to make these things more and more capable. There will be some impact to SaaS if you're just forms on a database. If that's the software business you're in, like, that's going to be rough for you. But if you move money, if you're in a regulated business, if you are an insurance broker, if you are an Apple authorized reseller and you're shipping laptops every day, I mean, these sorts of things, all of which, by the way, Rippling does, are very defensible positions, and we'll partner with the technology providers in AI, and everybody's going to win. So the stock market's going to reflect that. Valuations of private companies will reflect that, but the dust has to settle on how this stuff's going to play out.
Yeah. I think that vision of like Anthropic Pac-Manning the entire white collar, value set just misses the fact that it's not just, can you build a solution to a problem? It's like, do you have a perspective on it? Do you understand? Do you make friction with that market every day? Do you have some of these, things like moving money that really insulate you as well. So I think back to, it wasn't that long ago that Google had an ATS product, and I was like, oh, they're in the ATS business. Should we even be in it? It's Google after all. And it's like no one bought it. They pulled it off the shelves 2 years later. And like Microsoft had performance engagement tools, and like no one really implemented them. So it's like, just because, the big household name is getting into the space doesn't mean they understand the problem. They understand the buyer, the dynamics, and all the different intricacies that are on the ground floor.
What was the name of the Google applicant tracking system again?
I'll have to go back in my notes. It's like
I forgot
2018,
about that.
2019.
I knew some folks who worked on it, and
Yeah.
was surprised to see them moving in that direction. Yeah, it didn't quite catch traction, did it?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I
um,
mean, the way it is, man. You have a vision, you have an independent vision, you build toward that vision, you delight your customers, you make it rock solid, and then you take from the universe what you get for that. And I'm feeling pretty good about how the universe is going to shine upon the work that we're doing. It's good, and the markets will figure it out. And I mean, it's just, as I said at the beginning, man, what a time to be alive. It's like an exciting frontier technology moment. It's like even more impactful to humanity than the advent of mobile or social networks. Or it's just like, it's really exciting. I'm a hyper optimist, and very thankful that I am at Rippling working on this stuff right now.
yeah, no, I mean, you couldn't pick a better place to be to experience kind of the frontier of it all. So thank you so much for the time, for the insight. It's been a really awesome conversation, Matt. We're excited to share this with the audience, and appreciate you making the time today.
My pleasure, Brett. Thanks.